Hey YouTubers, I am your host Tony Merkel, and I want to let you know that we are a podcast first, which means we upload our shows to YouTube. If you really like the show and you want to hear it on the go, whether you're at the gym or in the car driving around, go to iTunes and hit subscribe. And if you're not on iTunes, no problem. Go to iHeartRadio, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player, hit subscribe, and you can listen to us that way as well. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. Let's get to it.
This was all circulating around the base that a giant had been killed, but no one was supposed to talk about it.
I saw 3 long, bony fingers reach up underneath the door, curl up to grab it, and then disappeared.
When he came over to me, dude, he slithered over to me.
And this giant comes out of the cave, and they're all frozen. And he starts running and firing at this giant. Well, the giant moves. He's got a spear in one hand, and he's running really fast and spears Dan and holds him up like this. Somebody else, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. They basically decapitate him.
Got closer. When he got about 15 yards away from me, I raised that 12 gauge and I blowed his head off.
I feel something pulling at my leg. And I look over and there are 2 small gray entities pulling at me. And they're literally, I'm getting pulled off the bed.
I reached my hand into this bush and I touched air. Couldn't breathe and I couldn't move because I know I'm seeing a monster.
Yep. Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to The Confessionals. I am your host, Tony Merkel. Thank you for being here. If you've had an encounter or a story you'd like to share with me on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionalspodcast@gmail.com. That's theconfessionalspodcast@gmail.com. Or go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com. Hit the connection section, and you can reach me that way as well. Either way works for me. Just get a hold of me. Now, this week we have Alan coming on the show, and Alan has a different type of story to share with us. He, in high school, found a property next to a quarry that had some suspicious activity going on. And I don't want to spoil too much for you, but the house that he saw had some weird things going on inside of it. They were chased off the property by a car and gunshot, and he also saw a weird cryptid-like deer running next to the car. So without any further delay, let's get to Alan and hear what he has to say about this weird, strange property he found in high school.
As we're driving down the long road getting to this particular place, I just started getting the most sickest feeling in my stomach. You know, like don't do this. This is just bad stuff. Just don't do it. You know, 4th time's a charm. Something's gonna happen. And I look at these dudes and I was like, "Hey man, let's just go back." And they're like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then unbeknownst to me, they were both having this bad feeling in their mind too, and so okay, we turned around. We pulling around at this little turnout place prior to getting to this yellow gate. The gate was locked this time. It had been closed, and I'm like, okay, good. So my headlights are on the gate, and as I turn around to head back to down the road we came from, something caught my eye, and as I was accelerating, I looked out my driver's side window right there, and to me, and this is, I only looked at it for like a brief glance. It looked to me like there were two deer standing on their hind legs, pacing the car as we were driving away. And I just haul ass out of there. That was the last time I visited the gravel quarry.
All right, today we got Alan on the show. Alan, how you doing, man?
Hey, good. Thank you for reaching out to me.
I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you reached out to me first to talk about this stuff because, you tend to get interview requests and stuff from people that, they have these experiences and, sometimes it's lifelong experiences. Sometimes it's just one instance. But rarely do I get somebody reaching out to me that has something happen to them that was relatively one instance, but it had so many facets to it. And when I read your little email you sent me, the first thing I thought of was the show I did not too long ago, episode 122, Secret Military, Enochian Technology, because that was one story of one happening that had so many facets to it. And I'm not saying that, you're going to share the same story or anything, but what I'm saying is it reminded me of that because there's so many different facets to this experience you had. So this happened to you over 25 years ago. The summer before your graduation, I'm assuming from high school, and you and your friend had some crazy experiences. And if you want, go ahead and take it away and share with us what you guys experienced.
Yeah, no problem. Like I was saying before, it's kind of an interesting story because there were several different phenomena wrapped up into one. Just big entertaining story. I break this story out every couple of years with somebody who, when we're sitting around a campfire. But yeah, it has juvenile delinquency in it. It has kind of some paranormal instances to it, and some like unexplained creature for all for lack of better word, some kind of crypto creature, but which kind of happens at the very end of the story. But it kind of starts out like this: is that I befriended somebody who was several years older than me, and they had just gotten out of the military, and this person was into some really hardcore illegal activity, and they lived in the next town next to me. And this happened in the state of Washington, by the way. They lived in the next town next to me. And I was hanging out with this person one night. And this person was like, I'm going to take you someplace. And, I have some stuff buried here and I'm going to, dig it up. And then, this is what I do for, to make money. So I was like, all right. I went out with this person, and we drove down this really long road. And what I remember about that night was it was just a spectacular, I don't know if it was a full moon, but the moon was extremely bright. And as we started getting closer to this area that he was, going to take me to, there was your typical, yellow iron steel gate going across the road to where, whether it be a construction site or something like that. But the gate was open, and we drove in and we started driving through, like a rock quarry. And if people are not familiar with what a rock quarry looks like, it's just a dug out depression into the ground where there's, several different pieces of, gravel laying around. And there's usually like a water table, like a false water table to where they had dug down and hit the water. So there was all that going on. And so as we pulled up to this particular place, he started, he took out a pickaxe and he started digging into the dirt. And I was like, wow, whatever this, and he didn't really tell me what was going on, but, I was like, well, yeah, please don't let there be a body that this guy's bringing up. So anyway, he pulls out his stuff that he'd buried in there like weeks prior. And we started talking around as I started talking with this guy and kind of looking around the, kind of surveying the rock quarry. it kind of reminded me of like a lunar landscape, what if you can imagine the full moon, no ambient light, and just kind of bouncing off that kind of grayish white rock. And as I started talking with them, I asked him, I go, you don't have your stereo on, do you? And he goes, no, the car's turned off. But you could hear music playing. It was really strange because we were right up against like basically a cliff that had been dug out, and whatever we were hearing was obviously bouncing off that cliff. And the best way that I could ever describe this particular music, it just sounded like organ music or like pipe music from like a 1960s type of carnival, kind of like bum 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 bum. It was just repetitive like that. And I looked around and I was like, I don't think we're the only one out here. And he goes, no, we're not. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, there's a house up there. And he starts pointing to where there. I didn't notice it before, but he pointed to like those kind of like yellowish sodium lights that they have like on old country roads. There was one light that was like you can barely see through the trees, and that was all I saw. And I was like, there's a house right there? And he's like, yeah, there's somebody that lives there. I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, we packed up. He packed up what he wanted to do, and we drove out of there. No big deal. Just drove out of there. About a week later, my friend Tom and I were driving around, and he had like scored like a 6-pack or something like that. And we were looking for a place to drink this beer. And Tom had another dude from high school who was an exchange student from a European country who spoke hardly any English. So we were driving around, and I said, you know what? I know a place where we can drink this beer. So he goes, oh, yeah? And I was like, yeah, check it out, man. So he had a car that was like late 70s Oldsmobile or something like that. It was like 25 meters long, this car. It was huge. So we started driving down the road, and, I'm trying to remember off memory where the other dude had taken me. So we found this place, and I was like, hey, you're going to love this place. I mean, it's just secluded. There's nobody out here. The gate was open. And as we pulled into this gravel quarry, kind of a similar night, the moon wasn't that bright, but it was still bright. And we were drinking this beer, and the foreign exchange student did the same thing that I said. He goes, are we the only ones out here? And I was like, yeah. He goes, I hear music. He heard the same thing that I had heard. And I go, yeah, there's a house up there. So as we got done drinking the beer, we decided, let's go up and check out this house. I mean, this is crazy that there's a house up here. So we all piled in his car. My buddy Tom's driving, obviously. And as we drive into the general direction of there has to be some kind of road here. So we're driving in the general direction of where we think a road is. We see something that to this day blows my mind away. It is, and to this day, people, when I do recount this story, that's often like they come back to this and go, you saw what? There was a sign at the base of this little road that started going uphill. It was a Santa Claus holding another sign that says something like, absolutely no trespassing. Violators will be prosecuted. But the Santa Claus was a black Santa Claus. It was just, a black Santa Claus. And it was like, why the hell would anybody ever think to make this sign look this way, and why have a Santa Claus? It's very baffling. So we're like, whoa, that's weird, and had I had a camera, I wish I would have taken a picture of it. So we started to drive up this road, and meanwhile, he has his headlights on going up this road. We see another sign on a tree that's off to our right, And as we get closer, it said, I warned you, no trespassing. Trespassers will be shot on sight. And we're like, whoa, this is getting serious. Meanwhile, the dude at the back of the car, who, you know, English is like his second language, is reading this. He says, should we really be here? And I look back and I go, yeah, you bet. So
jeez.
as we drive further, we drive, you know, maybe another 100 feet up this road. There's another sign, and it says last chance. That's all the sign says. So we see the light that I had seen earlier, and that's the only light in this house area. As we pull up, I mean, imagine this, if like, you know, like you're driving and to your right is the downhill section towards the quarry, and off to your left, it's uphill. And the house looked like some kind of like A-frame house. You know, from our vantage point, that's what it looked like. So we were directly underneath this house looking up at it. My friend Tom kills the engine, and we can see that there's a light in the house from the window. And I'm now, you know, like kind of leaning over above his lap area, looking out the same window he is. And what we see is totally baffling. All the furniture that is normally in a house, you know, chairs, kitchen table, is on the ceiling of this house. I mean, that's the only way that I can describe it, is that it took us, we're looking at this thing for like 30 seconds. All of our jaws are dropped. We're like, what the hell is this? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes like 3 or 4 gunshots, like bam, 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 like that. Scares the hell out of us. I bump my head on the top of the car. Meanwhile, think about it, like the car's now facing uphill. We hear this gunfire. My friend Tom's immediately, you know, puts it in reverse, and we're flying down reverse down this road. And we're all scared, you know, scared the hell out of us. You know, we're in high school, we're getting shot at, you know, it's like, we don't even know if the guy hit the car, because, you know, the adrenaline's pumping. So we get down to the bottom to where that Santa Claus sign was, do a Starsky and Hutch 180, and just drive the hell out of this place. We're driving down the road, and there's a straight stretch where you can get to where it's probably like maybe a half a mile of a straight stretch before the road starts to curve and things like that. And there's nobody behind us, and, you know, it's probably like 11 o'clock at night. We pull off on the side of the road, and we're like, okay, what the hell just happened? And so we're kind of like back briefing each other. We're like, you know, like, we're bringing out like, okay, you saw this? Yeah, I saw that. Did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that. So anyway, the next day at school, or, you know, when we go back to school, we had to tell somebody. So there were these 2 girls that were pretty adventurous, and we kind of pulled them to the side and said, hey, you know, this is what happened to us. And they're like, well, you guys are crazy. You know, where's this place at? And we're like, well, we'll take you tonight. And they're like, no way, you're going to go back there? And we're like, hell yeah, we're going back there. So this time around, I got my dad's truck, 4-wheel drive, and all 5 of us are now on the truck. Same scenario, we're going down the road. The gate is open to this gravel quarry, and we're like, yeah, here's the sign. We're showing them the sign of the Black Santa Claus. And I was like, you know, I'm going to play it cool this time. And I decided to go in reverse up the road so we can be facing back down in case, you know, everything happens again. So I kill the lights, and I go up in reverse. And, you know, this time those signs we were seeing are now to our left. And same thing, we got to that same position to where we had stopped, you know, a couple of days before. And now everybody's now looking out at the right side of the wheel, looking up. And all I can hear is, what the F? You know, holy crap, look at this, look at that. And we're like, yeah, what'd we tell you? This time around, gunfire again, but only louder and closer. And I look in my rearview mirror, and now I can't really explain this, but imagine like two car headlights just appearing out of nowhere. I mean, this vehicle was not there before. Like it had been waiting for us or something like that. And I was like, holy crap. So I just start flying down the road. And this car that is behind us, or this vehicle, truck, car, whatever it is, it's coming after us. I mean, it is right on my ass. And I'm like, great, now he sees the license plate. Great idea, you know. This car, and I'm in a four-wheel drive truck, and I just rip roar it right out of that quarry. And this car, I mean, to this day, I mean, nobody could really, when we tell that story, I couldn't really remember that car hitting me, like doing like one of those cop maneuvers where they try to make you slide out. But this car was so close that it was behind us, but the headlights were covered by the tailgate of my dad's truck. Everybody's freaking out. I mean, it is inside the cab of that truck. It is pandemonium going on. All of a sudden, we hit that straight stretch and no lights behind us at all. Like the car had totally disappeared. And meanwhile, people are looking out the back window and they can't even see a car. All they see are headlights. Like for some reason, like the car was like in a matte black finish or something like that. It was like you could not see a windshield. All you could see was headlights at us. We keep flying down that road, and we go for a couple of miles before, we decide to like stop on the side of the road and kind of get our bearings. And we're all like, well, you know, what happened? You know, and people are saying, I didn't even see a driver. All I saw were headlights. I mean, this car was just behind us, and it was just two lights. Very strange phenomenon. So we went back to school, and, you know, we're kind of like keeping mums about it because we didn't really want to tell anybody else because we didn't want other people going back to this particular place. And I told my friend Tom, I was like, you know, we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back again. You know, like a couple of real idiots. You know, the next time we went, I had my mom's car, and I was like, well, we'll fool them by going in a different car. And
jeez,
you know, we were getting freaked out, really, really freaked out. Like going down this road became real ominous to us. You know, it's like we're getting ready to go into like the bowels of some kind of like interdimensional weird house with furniture on it, getting shot at, ghost car type of place. You know, so we pull into this gravel quarry, and as soon as we break the threshold of that yellow gate, that car or whatever it was is now in front of us, and its lights immediately turn on. But this time I can see that it's a car, you know, it's some older model sedan or something like that. And so we pass it as it passes us on our left, and I'm like, holy crap, he's going to block that gate to where we can't get out. And so, like, it almost was like we were playing chicken or something like that. So I peel out in this gravel quarry, and I'm now just making a straight shot towards the gate to get out of this place. In the meantime, that car has turned around and is now heading back to us. And I'm like, guys, I go, this is it, man. This is where we die at like 17 years old in a gravel quarry. This is us, you know. So the car barely misses us again, and we scream out of the gravel quarry, and the car all of a sudden, same as before, is right behind us. I mean, that car is just, you know, feet away from our bumper. We get to the exact same spot that the car like totally went ghost on us as before, and all of a sudden, same thing as before. Lights gone. No car behind us. And I'm looking out the rear view mirror. I'm looking out the driver's side mirror. Just nothing. We get to the usual spot where we kind of pull over, and we're like, "Oh my God! Well, what is this?" Because like we're not doing this again. This is just getting too out of hand. This is getting too crazy. So same thing as before. We go back to school, and I tell these dudes, I was like, "There's something about this place that's drawing us again." I go, "We got to go back and check it out. We just, let's do this. Let's pull off on the side of the road prior to getting to the gate and just walk in there and see if we can, see what happens, because we're at that particular point we won't be trespassing." And they were like, "No, I don't want to do it. There's too many close calls, too many bad scenarios going on." And I'm kind of a persuasive person, and I talked them both into doing it again. Get my mom's car again, and as we're driving down the long road, getting to this particular place, I just started getting the most sickest feeling in my stomach. Like don't do this. This is just bad stuff. Just don't do it. Fourth time's a charm. Something's going to happen. And I look at these dudes and I was like, "Hey man, let's just go back." And they're like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then, unbeknownst to me, they were both having this bad feeling in their mind too, and so, okay, we turned around, and this is where the story gets weird. If it already hadn't gotten weird to this particular point. So we pull around at this little turnout place prior to getting to this yellow gate. The gate was locked this time. It had been closed, and I'm like, okay, good. So my headlights are on the gate, and as I turn around to head back to down the road we came from, something caught my eye, and as I was accelerating, I looked out my driver's side window right there, and in between the back bumper of my car and like the quarter panel area right there, to me, and this is I only looked at it for like a brief glance, it looked to me like there were two deer standing on their hind legs, pacing the car as we were driving away. The guy that was in the back starts to scream. Like he sees it too, like that. I see it, and I just hauled ass out of there. I mean, I was maximizing the capabilities of that particular car going down that like hardball road, back to where we were, just get back to safety and all that. And that was the last time I visited the gravel quarry.
Wow, man, that's crazy. So there's so many different things that were going on there. Do you think that the furniture on the ceiling of that house was something that somebody planted there like that? Or do you think there was something really strange going on inside that house?
I often think about that, and the possible scenarios are, that person, like that Winchester house in was it San Jose, that has all the doors that go nowhere and the furniture on the ceiling. They were trying to make something like that. Perhaps there was some kind of strange mirror system that he had that made it look like everything was on the ceiling. Who knows? All we know is that's exactly what I saw.
Jeez, man. So when you were being chased by this car and everything, did you ever feel like, looking back at it, that maybe this car wasn't really actually there, but actually more like an apparition of some kind? Because it doesn't sound like it ever made contact with you, like with the bullets or anything.
I haven't really thought about it in that terms. I just thought that whoever this person was an extremely skilled driver, and that they had been through this before. I kind of got the impression this person, used to punks coming up this road, and they're used to trying to scare people like it was like their entertainment or something like that. That was the kind of feeling that I got, but I guess never as like an apparition or anything like that. My mind just didn't go there, I guess.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I mean, it's like almost like somebody has no life and they're just sitting there waiting for somebody to come up the road so they can chase them and possibly kill them if they're actually shooting at you. You know, it doesn't seem like it's a very sane thing to do. But then again, when you're hanging these signs up with Santa Claus telling people not to come in, it's like almost egging them on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly the kind of feeling I got, that this person just wanted idiots to come up that road and test them or something like that. But one thing that I did notice is that when I first saw the lights of that car, you know, sometimes you can kind of tell, not really the make and model of a car by its headlights, but you can tell that, like, this is definitely a late model car. You can tell that this is an old truck or something like that. From when I first remember, I do remember that when we first saw the lights, they were pretty far apart. You know, and I almost got the impression like there were two cars, like kind of like hood to hood with their lights calculated that, you know, like their lights were like in unison or something like that. But as the car got closer and closer to us, the lights seemed to get, you know, shorter distance apart. So sometimes I think, were there two cars? I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, so I think that the car thing, I mean, it could go either way, really. I mean, when you were discussing it and sharing it, to me, it sounded like, was there something paranormal going on here just because of the house and the weirdness of the house and the environment you were in? But maybe it was two cars. Maybe it's just a family of psychopaths up there that are looking for punk kids, like you said, to come up there and test them. But it's definitely nerve-wracking. But there is like some kind of a paranormal experience here to this story, because the last part you shared with the deer that were standing on the hind legs, I mean, there are people that talk about the deer woman, where, you know, it's like a spirit, and it's more known to the Native American tribes as like a spirit. And some people even say that the deer woman helps women get pregnant or give birth. But then there's also the Wendigo, which is often depicted as a deer creature with, you know, antlers and very scary. What you saw, I know, is brief and stuff, but could you tell if it seems it's just like a deer standing on hind legs, or was there something, you know, like scary, like it's a skeleton almost standing there?
Well, okay, so, you know, like a deer have, you know, like we have like black-tailed deer here in Oregon, and they're a lot smaller deer than, you know, you would think like a white-tailed deer, like where you're from, you know, big antlers and things like that. What I remember was these things being very, you know, and like a black-tailed deer would probably be, if it were to stand on its hind legs, it would be over 6 feet tall, you know, and that's not even fully stretched out because of the way their back leg kind of like contorts backwards. What I remember was like that back leg contortion, really super skinny, but yet, you know, like when you run, you pump your arms. I remember specifically looking at this arm pumping action, and you know, you're talking about an animal that has a hard time, you know, that can't probably bend that 90-degree angle like we can, or further. Whatever this thing was pumping its arms, running along the backside of the vehicle, and as far as what I was looking at, you know, I was like, that is not a deer. That is just that's just where my mind's going right there.
So it was actually running along with the vehicle?
Yeah, it was pacing the vehicle as I was turning around there at that gate and getting ready to accelerate, you know, like 10, 20, 30 miles an hour. That thing was like running like 40 miles an hour, keeping up with us until I gassed it. Or both. I remember two things. Granted that, you know, this is at night. I'm looking out of the driver's side, you know, window right there, and that's what I saw. But the dude in the back, he saw more of it. And the thing that I got out of him was that he just, you know, said deer. It looked like a deer. And I'm thinking to myself, well, like when, other than like, a deer, standing up on its hind legs to grab food or something like that, which they will do, they're not going to be running along a vehicle, pacing this particular vehicle. And out of all the places that I could think about, if that situation were to happen, I was like, why not it happen at the gravel quarry? Everything weird happens at the gravel quarry, so I have no idea.
Yeah, and I mean, everything does happen weird at the gravel quarry. I mean, quarries are they're interesting locations because of, how they're formed, and, there's a lot of mining. There's a lot of caves, pits, collapses, things like that animals could hide in. And it's really strange because deer, even if they were on the hind legs, they're not built to run on hind legs. I mean, you talk about bears, they can pop up on their back leg and they can walk on their hind legs. And, people say, well, that's what people are seeing when they say they saw a Bigfoot. It was just a bear walking on its hind legs. I don't believe that. But when you take in count the very same thing, only with a deer, deer they're not built to run like that. It's just not natural.
Yeah, exactly. And their hind, even if a deer were to walk on its hind legs, their hooves aren't designed to support that kind of weight, because that's the reason why they're on all fours, is to balance out all that weight. It was just a strange phenomenon all the way.
Yeah, it's something that I definitely wouldn't want to experience myself. I mean, you're a high school kid, you're doing crazy, stupid stuff. You feel like you're invincible, so you keep going back for more. You think it's fun. It's going to give you some stories to tell later in life, which it did. But I don't think that I could go back after that seeing the deer experience. I mean, everything else you can say, okay, it's a crazy hillbilly shooting at us and chasing us around. It's kind of fun. They glue their furniture to the ceiling because they're weirdos. But once you see the deer creature running on the hind legs, whether it's a deer woman, a Wendigo, or something else going on, it's definitely something that's like, okay, it's time to go now, and I don't think we're going back anytime soon. The guy who took you up there initially and introduced you to the area, he was digging something up. Do you know what it was, and do you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, he was a thief. He was stealing stuff, and he was burying it out there. Yeah, because he had for what he was stealing, I guess he had a buyer, and so he was found some soft ground out there to bury it. So that's all I can say at this point.
Yeah, and now I wonder, how does he navigate out there, to bury these things without getting caught? I mean, you guys were going up there, and every time you went up there, you guys were finding trouble, but he was going up there and burying stuff that he stole. Do you ever wonder if, like, maybe he was the guy that was doing all this? I mean, do you think he lured you there?
No, I don't, because to answer your question, like, I don't think he ever went up that road, up towards that house. I mean, he as far as I know, he just knew that there was a house up there. He was very aware of it. But all I know is when I asked him a couple of weeks afterwards about it, he said he never went up that road. And I know it wasn't him, because during the time when this was going on, he was up in Seattle doing some stuff. So it definitely wasn't him in particular. I mean, he could have had a buddy or friends or something like that, but I seriously doubt it. I mean, this guy was a criminal. I mean, he's just not gonna get involved with scaring teenagers.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it kind of puts your operation at risk if you're trying to scare a teenager. What happens if you guys drive off into the quarry, or you actually connect with a bullet? Now, did a bullet ever touch the car? I think I might ask you that. I'm not sure.
Hold on, I just figured out this whole thing. This is a Scooby-Doo episode, is what this is.
What?
This sounds like a whole Scooby-Doo episode, doesn't it?
Oh,
where, where the criminal dresses as the monster to scare the kids away. Yeah, I mean that just wasn't his bag to go out and scare kids.
Yeah, I can understand that. So we'll chalk that up as a very weird experience, and something that I can see how it's fun to tell the story, every once in a while in the proper setting and stuff. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing that. You told me before we went live here that you had some kind of Bigfoot experience. I think you said your wife experienced it with you. What happened there?
Yeah. So, my wife is from a different country, and English is probably her third or fourth language. So, here in Washington, I was taking her to a place where I have had multiple experiences before with Bigfoot. I've been going to this particular place, for the last several years, and I can I could talk about all the previous scenarios, but I want to talk about this one because this one, is it's an entertaining story. I feel bad for taking her up there, but it'll be entertaining. So anyway, I just got a new trail cam, and it was probably like the third or fourth trail cam that I've placed out in this particular area because they've all been stolen, or they're just not there when I go to retrieve them. So I was like, all right, there's a game trail, and my experience with trail cams is that I've never gotten anything significant on them, birds, a raccoon, whatever like that. But we'll try this one out. So I just got a brand new car or a brand new SUV, and as I was driving up this particular road, I just told her we were going out for a hike, because eventually later on that day we were going to go on a hike, but I kind of told her, I was like, well, I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to set this trail camera up. And as we pulled up to this particular spot to where I was going to put the camera, I kind of looked at her and I was like, okay, stay in the car, and if I'm not back in 15 minutes, and I kind of pointed to the OnStar on the dash. I was like, if I'm not here in 15 minutes, go ahead and hit this. And she was like, well, why? And I was like, hey, just trust me. So let me back up. I had a really bad scenario in this particular spot where I was putting the trail cam up about a year prior that really, really frightened me because I was all alone when this incident happened. But, I'm very well aware of this particular area. So anyway, I get out of the car, I grab the trail cam, and I'm kind of making my way up this game trail because I'm going to put this camera on this tree. And I had the idea, okay, this time around, I'm going to take, tape and put it and double it up and like take moss off some trees and put it, to kind of hide the strap just in case it gets stolen. And as I'm doing that, I hear what I've heard before at this particular place, just a real long huff, like a huff of disgust, like, and you could tell that there was a lot of air power going through here, and my back is towards the noise, and I'm like, okay, here we go. About a minute later, there's a wood knock, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are starting early today, because usually it takes me a while for them to start making noise. And so as I'm doing my thing with the trail cam, I start hearing like roots separating from the ground. Now think about this old growth forest. We like Pacific Northwest old growth forest, you got mixture of hundreds of different kinds of flora, right? So I hear just roots separating from the ground very, very slowly, and I'm like, oh crap, I know exactly what's going on here. They're going to knock down a tree, which they've done before. Very aggressive. And my thing was like, okay, if for whatever reason they knock down a tree and they throw it out in the road, then I'm going to be blocked. Then I'm going to have to go back up the hill to where I don't know how to get off this mountain. This is the only particular way that I know how to, go down the road that we came up. I'm now frantically trying to, and I brought the instructions up to the game cam to try to learn how to use it as I was doing it. But I was like frantically, just trying to strap it around this tree. All of a sudden, just a tree just boom, and I turn behind me, and all I see is movement. And the movement is probably about 150, 175 feet away of this tree falling down. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go. So I just left the trail camera up on the tree, and now I'm heading back down the brushy game trail to where the car is. I look down there. My wife is now out of the car, and she's looking for me, and she's waving her hands, jumping up and down and pointing in the general direction of where that tree just came down. And just like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'm trying to tell the plane captain to start the engine, as I'm going down this little hill. I was like, get in the car. And she was like pointing. I was like, I don't care. Just get in the car, like that. So we get in the car, and she's frantically telling me that a vehicle had gone off the road, like some kind of car truck and she's telling me, we got to help the people. We got to help these people that have now crashed in the woods. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, honey, that was no vehicle. She was like, we got to help the people. We got to, and I'm like, no. Trust me, we got to get out of here. We're not in a good position right now. Believe me, that was no vehicle that, hit the ground or something like that. And she was like, well, what was that? And it was a very strange conversation, because there's a lot that's going to be lost in translation. Yeah. It's a very strange conversation telling her that, what that was more than likely, a 6 foot tall juvenile century that was mad that we were there, and it was showing us that it was mad, and having to like bring up that whole conversation to somebody that's never heard this before. Very, it was very uncomfortable me trying to tell her that. Hey, by the way, honey, I'm glad you married me, but yeah, this is what I do.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. I was thinking, hey, honey, I just want to let you know I'm a monster hunter. I hunt monsters.
Yeah, and so, very, very interesting. It's like she doesn't really know what to think, but all she knows is that like what she thought was some kind of like vehicle that went off the road. There was a horrible accident that happened up in the woods.
Wow. So I guess, is she okay with your Bigfoot, hunting now, or is she kind of refrain from it? Yeah.
Oh, she does not like for me to go out into the woods. She, is very, very fearful. We gone. My friends and I have gone camping in this particular area, before, and we'll have them knock down trees and break branches off trees surrounding our tent at nighttime and things like that. And when I tell her that, she is just morbidly confused about how anybody would ever voluntarily want to do that.
It's the mystery of it. That's what it is. I mean, we're guys and we like to explore and believe that there's mystery in the world, and when we find the mystery, we go after it. That's just what we do. We're crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, yeah, well, that's that's how some people get their kicks, I guess. So
yeah, I saw on your Facebook that you're former military. Do you think that has anything to do with your willingness to go out there and look for these things, especially when you know they're actually in the area?
Yeah, I think it does because of the fact that, I spent some time, Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's a certain level of excitement that you can only get from being over there. And I don't, I'm not trying to be a Freudian or anything like that, but I do think that maybe in some way I'm trying to like recreate some of that excitement, maybe. I don't know, but all I know is I've had an interest in this topic, since I was a kid, and I have found a place where they're definitely there during certain parts of the year, and I'm pretty and I'm always excited to go back there during that particular time of the year. This year has been pretty, no, I haven't really had any experiences going up there, any audible, anything for that much. So I don't know where this particular family group is at this time of year, but the Pacific Northwest. I mean, just throw a dart at the map and you'll find something.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been out there, but I mean, obviously, I talked to a lot of people who live there, and it's amazing to hear people describe the wilderness that's out there and how just big and rural some areas are. Did you ever find anything, with all your looking around for these things? Did you ever find any pictures or prints or anything that you would consider personally as vindication for you being out there?
Yeah, definitely. I found prints before. And granted that when you find something that can remotely look like a print, I mean, I don't know what people's expectations are, but you're just not going to find something, like if you were to step in wet mud or something like that,
Right.
you can get like the paradigm print or something like that. But, I have found depressions, obviously. The experience that I have in this particular area, which I firmly believe is a juvenile century, and I'll say that for several reasons. But yeah, as far as like whether you want to call it vindication or something like that, or a reward for finding something out there, I have found depressions that are spaced several feet apart, walking in a linear motion. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, and this is why I think that, we're talking about maybe a century for a family group, and that there could be like a breeding mother in this particular area, is because all the area that I've had these experiences at, and if I may, you back up a year, I got growled at so viciously by this particular Bigfoot that it just kind of rattled me. But it wasn't a growl like you would typically hear, like on a whether it be like if you can imagine like the Ohio sounds or something like that. It wasn't that type of growl. It sounded more like you're a truck driver, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely a truck driver.
So you have like the air brakes that make that rah 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 kind of sound. You know what I'm talking about? Like an air brake on a truck.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounded like a big truck was growling at me from like 100 feet away. It wasn't a really loud particular sound, but it sounded like somebody didn't have a lot of air in their lungs attempting to scare me. It was just like rah, 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 like that. And when it hit me, it was just like I had tunnel vision, basically. I was staring at the direction of where I was getting growled at, and it almost kind of looked to me like I was looking through a straw. And when I finally came to, I was like, "Oh crap, man! I'm gonna walk back down to my car." So as I started walking, whatever this thing was pacing me on one side of where it had growled at, and it paced me all the way almost back to my car. And it was such a surreal feeling to me that I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was definitely a weird feeling like that." I mean, that physically affected me. The particular area where I got growled at, I've been back to numerous times, and this like geographic area, I mean, let's just say that it's like, 500 square feet area on the side of this forested hill. All of the ferns that were in this area were pulled out and piled up to make like a hide or something like that, to look down upon the road that you would eventually be driving up. So that was very strange. I mean, like you get the idea of like the red fern, the sword fern, they were all pulled out and piled up to make like a hide. And, which in the military, I'm an infantry guy, we used to make hides all the time. So very, very tactful. It also very strange too, but it looked like somebody got really, really bored and started breaking apart twigs and like pushing them into the ground to make like, I don't know what they were. I mean, they could be like not geographic, but like little shapes and things like that. Somebody deliberately pushed sticks into the ground and somebody had also like been digging into the ground, like a kid would be like bored or something like that. It just screamed to me like this was a young person that was right here. That was the kind of impression that I got. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And, you know, it's very interesting. You're not very far from, I mean, it's not like a hop, skipping away, but I mean, you know, the location that you're doing this stuff, I mean, I imagine you're not far from like the Paul Freeman area, you know, where he was doing a lot of stuff in like the Walla Walla, Washington area. I mean, I really don't know. I'm just assuming you're probably within a few hours at least of there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm familiar with what you're talking about. And you know, the coast range is for all intents and purposes, it might as well be a rainforest. You know, I mean, that's the type of terrain that you're in, just because of the amount of the water that, you know, whether it's through rain or through fog or something like that. But all that area, you know, where you're talking about the Freeman footage, I mean, that is definitely probably be classified as a rainforest. So geographically, there's not much difference in between that particular area and the area where I was at. So it's kind of like, which I've tried to explain this to people before, and I'm very, very selective on who I talk to. But the Pacific Coast Range, going all the way up through BC, all the way basically to Northern California, one area might as well be another area, because of the fact that the elevation is generally the same, and every stream you have, every river you have is going to be salmon producing. It's going to have the exact same kinds of food. So really one area is just as good as another area. And I don't know why they chose this particular area over another area. It just, you know, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. You were talking about earlier about the impressions you found and, you know, what to, you know, expect with reason. And, you know, I'm really a big fan of Paul Freeman's work, you know, when he was doing his thing before he passed. And I had a chance to talk with his son a little bit. And and his son told me, he said that, you know, people would kind of come down on his dad, you know, the doubters, and say, you're just making evidence up. You're just, you know, nobody finds this much evidence. And the one thing that he said is people have to understand that his dad spent, you know, I think he said like close to like 50 hours a week out in the woods looking for these things. And it was every day for like 15 years. That's a lot of time that he spent in the woods looking for these creatures. So when you take that in perspective compared to most people today who, you know, they're out there looking for these things, but they're not out there on that kind of level. It's hard to find things like fresh footprints in the moment, because if you find a fresh footprint, it means that they're probably really close nearby, you know? So a lot of times you're going to be finding things that are older impressions, and you just have to kind of come to expect that.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of things. It's like the lottery. You got to play it to win it. And, you know, if you're spending, you know, the equivalent of more than a full-time job out in the woods every week, the chances of you know, noticing something that wasn't there last week is going to be, you know, tenfold. You're just going to definitely notice it. And getting to know the lay of the land, you know, the topography, the geography, the lay of the land, like he did in that particular area, you know, and what I know about that particular footage is that, you know, that wasn't the first time that he had been in that location, nor the last. He just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Exactly. Know? And I mean, that footage, I think, is probably it's probably the best footage we have outside of the Patterson Gimlin film. I mean, it's really right up there. I mean, because it's, you know, the time that it was shot. I mean, it wasn't like 2019 where we could use computer graphics to make something. Whatever that was really there, and it was really big, because when you look at it next to the trees that it was near, it was huge, absolutely huge. When it walked by the one tree, it caught part of the tree with the shoulder, and the whole branch just moves and waves back and forth. I mean, whatever this was a really big creature. And I'm a firm believer in the Paul Freeman footage. And it's just, I think it's just one of the best out there.
And that's the thing, though. When I look back at that footage, it's almost like he had like a gimbal on it, like on a drone to keep it steady. I am so surprised that he had a steady hand while filming that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know. What it's even like to see a Bigfoot, so I don't even know how I would react in the moments and stuff. But it's the more I talk to people and the more I hear their stories about these encounters, the less I actually want to come across it. So I think it'd have to be a contained environment. Like, let's get this thing in a cage, have it a block away, and maybe I'll look at it through binoculars. That's kind of how I'm at right now.
Yeah, like if and only if the Bronx Zoo has a Bigfoot, pavilion or something like that, then I'll go see one. But I mean, I guess I just I grew up out here in the Pacific Northwest. I like being out here, and it's interesting, entertaining, and exciting at the same time. And I don't think I'll ever be able to shake that.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you whatsoever. Everything I've heard about the Northwest and stuff, it's a beautiful area, and it sounds like it's the Squatchers, haven. So, man, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing these stories. Everything from the weird house to the deer creatures, the Bigfoot stuff, being chased by a car, being shot at. It's been an eventful show, man, and I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, and you have a good one.
Well, that's the show, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, please share the show with your friends. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, email, doesn't matter to me. But if you enjoyed the show and you think somebody else would enjoy the show, it would really help our show if you shared it around with other people. So I greatly appreciate that in advance. And until next week, friends, stay safe, take care, and remember, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. Bye.